Hello everybody and welcome to the 7th Archimakers Teatime questions. I'm Anton and I'm pleased to be joined with Mariam, who is in my Archimate group, and with me to interview today. Hi Mariam.
Hi Anton.
We've got our summer camp starting soon. There's a few topics including designing a park, designing an outdoor classroom for a real project to be built, and one introducing Google SketchUp. I'm really interested in the Google SketchUp because it just sounds really unique. How about you, Mariam?
I'm really interested in the Google Sketchup as well and designing a park because I think it's going to be really awesome to design a park.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And if you'd like to look at the summer camps available, please use the link below. Other news is that the founder of Archimake, Cheryl Pilliner-Reeves, is standing as a candidate for the RABA London Council. She's standing for increased diversity and inclusion, and we hope she gets in. For the first time this year, architecture students can also vote, but not us, unfortunately. Do you also have news for us, Mariam?
Yes, I do. I am now a character in an illustrated children's book. It's called The Tales of Mini Mariam, and it is about me as a young child being very, very naughty and doing very cool stuff. This is what the book looks like. You can buy it on Amazon.
That looks really cool. And it looks quite funny too.
Thanks.
So today in our Tea Time Q&A, we're really pleased to have Wendy de Silva with us. Wendy de Silva is partner at Chance de Silva. Wendy is an award-winning architect and accredited RBA client advisor with over 30 years of industry experience. She has a wealth of knowledge across a range of educational, commercial, and residential projects, but her particular expertise is in healthcare design. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you very much. Hi, Mariam.
Wendy, do you have a tea time drink today?
I do. It's here. And it's my favourite drink of all time. It's a glass of water.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So, Wendy, can you tell us what inspired you to become an architect?
Would you like the honest truth?
Yes.
Okay. So what happened was I wanted to be a marine biologist. And I went off to the Marine Biology Institute, which is in Surrey, and got shown around it by a marine biologist who said, see all these pots and all these jars that there's lots of little animals in, like prawns and things like that. You'll probably end up counting them and just making lists of these. You won't be on a boat in the Red Sea like you think you're going to be. So I thought, okay, maybe I need to do something else. And I come from an Asian background, and most Asian dads want their children to be doctors. And I was doing the right A-levels to be a doctor. And my UCAS form came in, and I said to my mum, I really, really don't want to be a doctor. She said, well, you better think of something that your dad will be okay with. And I thought, I'll be an architect. So there you are. That's what inspired me to be an architect.
Wow.
That's quite a funny reason.
It is very unusual. Most people that I was at architecture school with had wanted to be architects since they were under 10.
Thank you. So, what was your favourite book that inspired you early in your career?
Well, when I was about your age, I used to love Dr. Seuss. And The Cat with the Hat was one of my favourites. But early in my career, I've got two. So one's called Practical Carpentry, and it has really cool stuff in it for an architect. Architects think this is cool. You might not yet. About nails and what types of nails there are and how to put nails together. And then the other thing that I use is something called the Architect's Pocketbook, and that has all sorts of really useful things in it, like what a sash window is made out of and how all the bits go together. And it's also got things like steel sizes, because actually the steel size, the size it says isn't the size it is. It depends on the weight of the steel, and every bit of steel that says it's nominally 150 millimeters can be bigger or smaller. And that all that stuff is in this book, and it's really useful.
Thank you. I really liked the books that you were reading at a young age, and I think that it's really cool how you can learn how screws come together and apart.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a nice part of the job. Things have got to sort of stand up for a long, long time when you're an architect, so you need to get it right.
We have a question. What was your favourite project that you worked on?
Well, the most favourite project, I think, was just after I'd qualified as an architect, which I did in England. I went back to Sri Lanka, which is where I was born, and I came over here when I was 13, so I was sort of halfway. I was about 25 at the time, and I worked on this really cool project, which is a university on a coconut estate. The coconut estate was on 2 hills, and it was next to the sea. And I think my favourite day in that was when they emptied the site, because they had to work out where all the site roads went. So I went to site with just the security guards to work out where the roads might go and what levels the roads might go in at. And the only other people apart from the security guards was like loads of parakeets and loads of monkeys. It was great.
Wow.
Thank you. That's a really cool building. That sounds like a really cool building. We are all spending more time at home than ever before. What is it that you love most about your home that gives you a sense of well-being?
So I'm actually a mental health leader at a company called the IBI Group as well. And if you want to have a look, you can go on the New London Architecture website, Architect's Home, and you can see what gives me a sense of well-being, because I actually did a little tour of some of our house with the things that make you better or feel better in these quite difficult times for everybody. But for me, the thing that's best is looking outside and being able to connect to the sky and the trees. I really think connections to nature are the most important thing, and sunlight and daylight. Those are the things that I enjoy most about my house.
So I'm homeschooled like most of these countries these days.
And I'm in secondary school, and some watching are in primary school. What suggestions would you give us to explore our interests in architecture?
So I wonder how many of you have gone out for more walks than you usually do, because I've gone out for loads more walks and loads more bike rides. And what I've been really, really surprised by is I've lived in my neighbourhood for like 25 years, which is a lot longer than most of you have been alive, and even maybe your brothers and sisters. And there's all sorts of things that I didn't know existed that I've found because I've had the time to go looking. And so I think you should just look in your local street and look and see what's the same, what's different, what's from modern times, what's from old times, what's been converted, where they've added to buildings, how they've added to buildings, why they've added to buildings sometimes. Is it because you needed to have a growing family, or is it because you wanted to have a loft for doing art, or what? I think there's a huge amount you can do just by looking locally and not just walking past things. There's a lot to notice.
I really agree. Wendy, I know you are passionate about mentoring and educating young people, and you've seen some of what we do in Archimakers. What did you think of it?
Well, I think what is amazing is that actually I think the younger you are, the more inventive you are. So I think some of the things that older architects sometimes forget is that to use their eyes fresh and do things really without thinking about it too cleverly, really enjoyably. And I guess the sense of fun that I get from your projects is something that I think is is something we sometimes lose sight of when we get a bit older and a bit seriouser, and money's a problem and this is an issue and that is an issue, and really you need to keep it fresh. And I think we can learn a lot from you guys, and we do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering all our questions. Can you please show us a little more of your favourite project now?
Yeah. So this is where I live, actually. I live in Highbury. A lot of you will know it as the home of Arsenal football ground, which is what's in the background. But if you look to the front there, you'll see some trees and a green topped building. That's a copper building. And that is our project, Chancellor Silva's first project. It's called Venus. It's our first project that we did as architects and also as developers. With a third partner, we borrowed money from the bank to build this house. So the birth of Venus, we called it. Why was it called Venus? Well, actually, if you go back to the one slide before, you'll see that it's the end of a terrace of houses. And what was on the end before Venus was a little workshop. It was a red well, it was red wood on the top, and it was the brick below. It had been a milk factory actually at one stage, but when we got to it, Venus Fashions, as it was called, had about 10 people working in it, making clothes. They sewed up clothes in there. And when they shut up is when we went and put a note through the door and said, if you're ever going to sell this site, sell it to us. So Venus Fashions became Venus House. And so that was great because it was just such a fun project to do. A photographer friend of ours took this photograph, and he actually used his car headlamps to light it, because in those days we didn't really have fancy lights and things like that. So there you are, as an inside story on how to get a good picture. Use your car headlights if you've got one. And one of the things that I am very passionate about is making architecture accessible for everybody, so that everybody can go in. And I know you guys know about Open House and Open City, which is Victoria Thornton's project. Every September for free, you can go into lots and lots and lots of buildings in London. And from the first year that Venus was complete, we put it in to Open House, London Open House, several times. So I told you that I went back to Sri Lanka and worked on a university project on this massive estate, really, really big estate. And one of the things about working in the tropics is you don't need to worry about the cold. You need to worry about the wet, but you don't need to worry about the cold. You don't even need to have glass in some of the windows. In fact, it's better if you don't, because the windows just get dirty and you want to have the breezes. So one of the things that I was doing on this site was actually connecting all the different buildings, working out how to connect all the different buildings. And in addition to the roads, we had all these walkways going up and down the hill. And that picture on the right, I just put in because it was fun. I found it when I was looking for these pictures. It's me on an elephant. It's ever so little. And this is one of the two buildings that I did the plans for. It's the biology building at the Ruhuna University. In all, I think there was about 50 buildings on this university. That's quite a big project team. And it got built over quite a long period of time. Those are coconut trees that you can see there. And yeah, no, it's a really enjoyable building to be involved in. And the other thing I do, and do a lot more of now, is healthcare buildings. So community buildings, that's an eye clinic that I did. And what I do now mainly is specialise in buildings for people with mental health issues. And this is one which is near Radlett. It's called Kingfisher Court. And this is it's beautiful actually, because it's in the green belt. So we kept all the trees, and we wanted to make a wooden building. So there's wood and shingles on this building. So that's the external view. That's one of the views from the outside. And that's the view from the main entrance hall. And there's this column, that white column that you can see in the middle of the foyer. And we worked with quite a few artists on this project. And this particular artist, Simon, was so entertained by us having to have one column in this big open plan area that he thought he'd march a few trees in. So those other sculptures that you can see are bronze sculptures of trees that he cast from the real trees that were outside, and he brought them into the building. And if you look on the right-hand side, you can see somebody on that white chair. That's me. And what's in front of me is a bronze tree. And the inside of it is a beautiful blue colour. And this is a ward. So this is a courtyard to a ward. And what's in the background is the main day space of the ward. And when it's a nice sunny day, people can come out and eat outside. And you might even be able to make the giant chess pieces that are there in the courtyard, because one of the things about being in a mental health hospital is it can be very boring, and it's really important to have activities that you can do. And this is a view over the rooftops. So the courtyards were sort of bright colours and earth colours, and then anything that you could see from the outside was clad in timber. And then we had a zinc material which connected the two, because there was a higher range and a lower range, and they followed the contours of the hill, so they were built into the hill. And actually some of the stuff that I did here at Kingfisher Court, I learnt when I was in Sri Lanka working on that university, how to nestle a building into its landscape and how to work with the landscape. I think that's really, really important. It's good for mental health, but I think it's also good for nature. It's certainly good for sustainability. It's something that I'm very passionate about. So this is the last project I'm going to show you. It's the most recent project that Chance de Silva have completed. It's a house in Stoke Newington. It's called Vex. And it's called Vex because we started with a piece of music by a pianist called Eric Satie, called Vexation. And it's a piece of music that loops around and goes on for a very long time. It takes between 18 hours and 24 hours to play. And it's usually played by a medley, several pianists who take turns to play. And you can see it there. It's behind that tree. And if you look carefully, you can see that it loops differently on the different floors. And the next picture might help. Oh, so this is actually us working with a musician scanner to do it. We decided that the architecture would follow the idea of this looping piece of music, and Scanner was working with us right from the beginning to make a piece of music that would also work with the building. And what he did in the end was he took a recording that I made of the concrete being poured, and he turned that into the music. And if you go on his website, you can hear it. It's called Vex Flow and Vex Drift. And I learned a lot about concrete. With my partner, Steve Chance, we did a lot of research into concrete. And we did the concrete pour on the top level just before a very, very hot bank holiday. And the builders were off-site. And on hot days, the concrete needs to be wetted down because otherwise it cracks. So we went over on the bank holiday weekend and did what was necessary, which is to wet the Hessian sacking down to keep the concrete from cracking. And it's quite cool inside. That's the curved kitchen and the top floor. And on the outside, you can see we've got on the left-hand side, it's got curved concrete. We use corrugated iron as the formwork to cast the concrete against. And then we took the formwork and used it inside in the studio as a finish. And you can see on the right-hand side, the roof light that came from the sliding of the two ovals, the looping shapes. And so this also we put into open house. And the project, like some projects do, took a bit longer than we expected to finish. So you can see that it's not quite finished, but people were keen to see it anyway. So we invited them in. And lastly, and we also had a few other people that you might recognise come to have a look at the house, which is great fun. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That was really cool, and I love how you use your knowledge to help others. That's really nice.
Well, it's a nice thing to be able to do. That's one of the nice things about architecture. You can use it in all sorts of different ways.
What do you think, Mariam?
I really liked and enjoyed watching everything. I loved the idea of the headlights shining on the buildings to get a cool type of light. And I really liked the university because it's very unique. and I also really like the colours on the mental health hospital.
Thank you.
Wendy, thank you for sharing your projects with us and answering all our questions. We may have time for one or two more questions before we finish. And we have a question from Olivia. It was, what are your favourite materials for making buildings?
Actually, I think even that short selection of my projects showed you that I'm quite eclectic. I like lots of different materials, but I think the thing that connects them all is that I like buildings that weather and that patinate and that don't need to be maintained and that show their age. It's a sort of Japanese idea. I think they call it wabi sabi, where you have a really decent material to start with. It doesn't need to be expensive. It can be brick, or it can be concrete, or it can be wood, and you let it. You detail it well. It's really important that you detail it well, otherwise it rots or it goes. The colours go wrong, or you get lots of staining or whatever. Which is where we come back to all these practical carpentry stuff. This is important. But I like materials that age and show their age well. I think that's something that I enjoy. And we've used copper, we've used concrete, we've used wood, we've used rusty steel that rusts. So I don't think I have a material that I use.
We also have a question from Sarah. Do you do one particular style of building design, etc., Baroque, neoclassicism, or do you do all styles of building design?
I think I probably answered that question with the pictures that I've shown you of the buildings that I did. I would like to think that I do buildings that are responsive to their context, but also that are quite inventive. And I certainly study all these different styles of buildings. I think it's important to understand the roots of architecture. But I think I'd like to think that I do something that's contemporary and maybe makes references to those styles. But I don't tend to do one particular style.
Thank you, Wendy, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
Well, I'd like to say thank you for having me. It's been great fun putting those slides together.
And thank you at home. I hope you enjoyed this as much as me and Mariam did. If you'd like to do a drawing of one of Wendy's projects, please email it to us and we'll send it to Wendy as well.
Oh, that'd be fun.
That's the end of Tea Time Q&A for today. If you'd like to see my and Anton's summer presentations, please visit the link on the screen now.
We'll say bye for now and leave you with a presentation from our youngest Archimaker who was age 6 when she started this term. I hope you join us next week for our interview with Hanif Kara, a leading UK engineer who is also visiting professor at Harvard University. Bye!
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 Hi, my name is Phoenix and these are my drawings from Archimakers. This is my living room and my kitchen. I like it because of the plants at the window. I thought the sofa was a bit small and out of scale. This is the shorter house. I did it on my 7th birthday. I like how I made the lens very straight and I like it, the house itself, because it is very colourful and most of it is made out of glass. This is my bedroom plan. We measured it with my feet at 30 seconds. The next week, I added in lots more detail and it started to look more like my room. I made my books, my toys, my wardrobe, and my drawers. This is the elevation of my room. we were asked to draw what we liked doing in the room. So I drew the sunlight and me reading. This is a model. I like it because I drew a painting that my dad made for me. We made the lamp out of an old Christmas decoration. Right under my window there was a radio in which I put my copies. This is a plan of my small house. I have a bed that's a sofa, a table that's a desk. I have lots of windows and windows at the back. This is the elevation of my small house. It is made out of recycled wood and has a roof garden that has a ladder that leads out. This is all about the energy of it. I made 2 solar panels. So one solar panel connects to the neighbors. I have a river which the rain can go down into the river, and that is very good for my toilet. Then I made a model of the house, which has a little dog and cat flag and a roof. Or actually tell them about it. I made a solar panel that has a string to pull it up and down. I put a string there to show that the water can travel through the string and up to the roof garden and go throughout the house. We can recycle water. And we can recycle water from the river.